How are you? First of all, how's your day going? How you feeling?
My day has been a bit crazy, but all good things. I love being busy. I had a crazy weekend as well with a release and a show, and also getting ready to leave out of the country again in 2 days. So lots in flux at the moment, but everything is really good. Thanks for asking.
And are you in LA right now?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm based in LA. I have my little home studio. I live here / work out of here.
It's a nice looking studio. I can see it behind you a little bit.
Yeah. It's my baby. I worked so hard on it. I mean, I basically just converted a bedroom into the studio, and it's quite small. I mean, it looks bigger, I notice on camera and stuff, but it's small and I like it that way. I like it cozy and the acoustics are better with it more tight in here. And
yeah, there's something about, I don't know if you feel the same way, but I think there's something about keeping this space kind of humble, even as you expand and become more, quote unquote, professional or whatever you want to call it, that I think it's kind of important to stay connected to that for a lot of artists, because it's kind of how it's how we all start, right? Is in some bedroom or in some car or whatever. And then as things get bigger and you maybe have more money or more whatever to get more gear to build a more professional space, all of that is great. But then I think it's sometimes hard to stay connected to like how it all started.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, up until just last year, I was working literally out of my bedroom. I was living in a couple different countries, Berlin. I was living in Berlin in Germany and Australia, Melbourne, Australia, and all my spaces were extremely small. And I worked out of my bedroom. So like my bed would be literally behind my studio desk.
Yep.
I never had proper acoustic treatment. I never had anything like that. And I think last year, January 20, or just out of 2021, just going into 2021, I got a bigger space with my partner. Which allowed for me to have a bit of a bigger apartment complex. And then I converted one of the bedrooms into a studio. So it's still fairly small, but I also had the opportunity to finally build a more creative space instead of just sleeping and, working out of the same space, like separating that a little bit, really enhanced my creative process. So I think this is where I'll be at for a long time, probably the next 5 to 10 years. And I love it. And it has a feminine energy to it. The hue lights is what makes it for me. I just installed a bunch of hue lights everywhere and you set the whole mood, at all times straight from your phone. So I agree with you though. I mean, I'm still at home. I didn't even get a studio outside. I have a lot of friends who rent studios outside of home and they find it works better for them to be outside of their home. But yeah, I'm trying to stick around my home, but also now have a space that can enhance my creative flow.
That makes total sense. And I think for the people who get an external studio, I understand that of like, you kind of clock in and you clock out and you treat it like a job and you can kind of set it mentally. But I'm a little more on your end where I kind of like having everything at home where you can kind of just be a little more casual or a little more, what's the fucking, it's such a simple word.
Spontaneous.
Thank you. Yeah. I don't know why I couldn't think of that word.
Like, inspiration hits whenever it hits. And if you have access to your studio at all times, you can just roll in here in your jammies and get it started. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
The flip side, sometimes you get too comfortable and, I've had moments in time where, I've had some writer's block, I guess you could say, just a little overwhelmed with like touring and stuff. And so it made it difficult to get in here, but you find your balance and your flow. And usually I'm in my jammies when I'm working out of here or it really depends.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. You were saying you moved, out to LA from Berlin. Is that right? Where you were before?
Yes. So I was actually born and raised in Los Angeles. Yeah. Sorry, what'd you say?
Oh, I was just saying that was like a recent move, right?
Yeah. So right before the pandemic hit, I made a decision to leave Los Angeles and move to Berlin in my head indefinitely until further notice. And I kind of packed my whole life with me. And it was a really, really intense process. And 3-4 months after being there, the pandemic hit and I didn't have a solidified visa to stay long-term at that stage. So when Trump put the travel ban out, and we had like 48 hours to get out of the country, I put everything in storage and I came home and I had no idea. Everything was up in the air for me. And simultaneously, I got COVID in the first week of March. So I got sick. I got stuck in LA, and then I missed my return flight and everything was shut down for 3 months. And then, I just never went back, sadly. It was kind of like out of my control, but it worked out for the best.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes that is the way it works. And I cut you off before, but I think you were saying that you were born and raised in LA as well, right?
Yes.
So some familiarity there.
Yeah, my parents are here. So I think I'm just very close with my family, and we're a very small family. So it's important for me to be close to them. They're a bit older, in their late 60s. And, I just want to make them a priority. So that's pretty much the main reason that's kept me in this city.
It's a good reason.
They actually taught me everything I know about work ethic. They love to, I think, achieve their goals. And that's what really taught me that you have to work to earn what you want in life,
Yeah.
So I'm grateful to them for teaching me that, because that's how I built this. And they definitely put pressure on me as well with school and being a great student, which taught me a lot. I also went to university. This was before I went back to school for music. I did my BA in communication studies with a minor in world religions, and was part of 2 honor societies that I'm really proud of. And I always worked really hard for anything that I was focused on, So I think when I started moving in the direction of art and music, I had that in me, the ability to really stay focused and commit.
Yeah, well, so I mean, it's interesting because it sounds like there were kind of two paths, right? If you're like a high achieving person, you're getting your BA, you're an honor society, all of that. But then there was maybe this separate path, which was a passion for music. And I guess the journey is kind of finding out where those two meet.
Yes, absolutely. It's interesting. I mean, at first, when I told everybody I was going to go after music and quit my job and just start over, everyone was furious with me, including my family,
Which, as they should be, probably,
Yeah. And I get it. It's really a hard industry to try and make something of yourself. It's super competitive. There's so many incredible artists all over the world, and people who had also been doing it far longer than I have. But I had a calling, and I was truly unfulfilled with the things that I was doing at the time. I wasn't happy, and it was leading to I don't know, just a downfall in my mental health and just my overall well-being. And so eventually, when my professional job in college and out of college was working for music production companies and record labels, doing the business side of things, I quickly realized that I wanted what those artists had, which was to get to make things, to create things every day. And that was what felt right for me. And so I was like, fuck it, I'm going to go for
it. Which is great. And I, just from reading up about you a little bit, I know you were musical at a young age as well, right? Playing piano.
Yes, I've been playing the piano since I was a little girl. I was singing a lot as well, musicals, working with a vocalist named Jeffrey Allen, who's incredible. He's such an incredible professor, actually. At the pop music department at USC.
Okay.
But before he was a professor, he was training younger artists. And I think I was about between 6 and 12 years old that I was working with him, just learning how to use my voice and playing music, reading music. And then I kind of abandoned everything around the age of 12, 13 and gave up on it.
What happened there? Do you know why?
Yeah. I mean, I think growing up in LA, there's a very competitive, aggressive part of this industry that kind of can scare people away. You have a lot of people coming from all over the world to here to achieve their dreams, and they're confident and they're ready for it and they're excited. But when you grow up and you really see it, and you have friends and family and people that are in it, in the entertainment industry, what comes with that, the negative sides of that, I was quickly discouraged, honestly.
That's such a young age to come to that realization,
Yeah, it actually destroyed my confidence completely. I was extremely insecure pretty much all of high school and a good portion of college until I had my spiritual awakening, But I completely, my confidence was diminished. My self-worth was diminished. I didn't think I was good enough. So I let it all go.
Man. So at that point, like right before you let it all go at age 11 or 12, were you looking at music as, like a serious, like professional, I want this to be my life kind of thing?
Yeah, I think when I was younger, I had a dream of being a singer. I don't think electronic music was at the top of my head, but I
Sure.
think I wanted to write music. I wrote acoustic pieces all the time on the piano and still do. I love composing very, very raw acoustic pieces, almost like score, cinematic, emotional pieces, and singing and songwriting. But yeah, that was what I had in my head. And I wanted to be somebody that made an impact on this culture, on this industry. And then I gave up on it.
And LA, man, it's because I'm just thinking about if your story had happened in any other city in the US, I don't know if it would have gone the same way, because I think, yeah, you're right that LA, everyone's there kind of for this singular purpose. And there is this kind of
Mhm.
group mentality that, yeah, you always have to be making it or you always have to be in front of people. Because in so many other, cities, I think you would just be like, yeah, I'm good at music and music is fun.
That's
And,
so right.
there's
That's so right. I
LA,
say that
it
all the
like
time.
robs innocence a bit, I think.
100%. And at a young age too, and you're so exposed to it. And people are just very, I don't want to say mean, but the people who are established and successful, for example, if you push yourself in front of an agency as a young woman under the age of 10, they'll be very quick to tell you, like, this is not going to happen for you. Like, you're not good at
Man,
this, things like that. So discouraging
crushing.
and I've had people tell me that it's not going to happen, at a young age. And I think those moments, I just got discouraged. I let those words, those people who I looked up to because they were older than me, telling me that it's not realistic
Yeah.
or that it can't happen. It got to me.
Yeah.
I never want to be that. I would never be that person to anybody. Let anybody dream. You never know what can happen for them. You never know.
Oh, of course. Of course. And I mean, yeah, that's a crushing thing for a kid to hear. I remember this is kind of not related, but I was listening to this podcast with an actress, fairly famous actress, who name I'm now forgetting, but she was talking about her kids now getting interested in acting and that she had to kind of sit them down at, I think, a very young age, like 7 or 8 or something, and be like, you can, if this is what you really want to do, we can do it. But here's what's going to happen is, people are going to tell you your face is wrong, like all these you're going to hear all these terrible things. And for such a young kid, I'm like, man, is that even worth it? Like, is the risk reward? I don't know.
So sad. I think especially in the film industry, like movies and modeling is so much worse than music. Because music, if you have the talent there, you do have, you're on an advantage. You have that leverage. But I think in other areas of the entertainment industry, it's literally that raw. It's that horrible. And people go through it. And you have to be thick-skinned to be able to just believe in yourself over anybody else. And it's tough. But well, I mean, even coming back to it later on in life, I still had to push through a lot of doubt from the outside,
And I think it's this thing of like the self-confidence and not listening to other people. It's a thing you constantly have to remind yourself of or constantly renew. It's one of those things that it's not like a switch flips and it's just fixed forever, right?
And I deal with it all the time.
Yeah, that's maybe what I was going to ask you next was, how about now looking on the other side of it where things are going pretty well, at least from the outside, you're putting out great music with great people, doing big tours, shows, all that kind of thing. Have you picked up any kind of tricks to, keep yourself in a better headspace with all of this? Because there's the comparison and all that never goes away. It maybe only intensifies at higher levels.
Yeah. I mean, this is a great question. Thank you for asking me this. I think I'm a work in progress around this matter, particularly. I really, for the most part, believe in myself enough where I'm doing this full throttle. I'm giving my all. I think when you want this enough, when you want to give yourself to the world and share your art with the world and inspire others, which for me, I think is the primary reason why I'm doing all of this. I think that there's a lot of different things, right? Like I have moments where I believe in myself. Then I have moments where I'll see someone who started out at the same time as me who may be succeeding further. And then the question comes around where it's like, well, what am I doing wrong? Or what could I be doing differently? And what is it about me that I'm not there? that's an extremely toxic way of thinking. That is a natural human instinct. Comparison is a human instinct, but something that, we all say it's a thief of joy. And it's so true. The thief of joy of our own self, and just in that moment being proud of where we actually are and what we have accomplished. So yeah, I have to work with that a lot. As I'm growing and getting into even more competitive space. There's so many talented producers and DJs coming in and coming up right now. I think it's growing more than ever before. And almost like DJing and electronic music is becoming slightly mainstream, like a trend, right? Everyone's learning how to DJ.
I would say
everyone I know is
slightly,
DJing, actually. All my friends. So I think, there's that. There's also, my strategy is always grounding down and telling myself that it's okay to feel this way. I don't reject my feelings or tell myself, oh, you shouldn't be looking at this person or comparing yourself or feeling like you're not doing enough. Just focus on your own accomplishments in this moment.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. Even after sometimes I play an opening set and I may have had a slower turnout compared to the other artists that I see throughout the night. Instead of being so grateful that I even got to play that amazing festival, sometimes the doubt kicks in.
Yeah.
I kind of redirect the energy and the focus onto what I have accomplished. And that other people's success doesn't take away from your success, and everyone has their own journey. And it's so important to remember that we all have our own journey, and maybe our route is just slightly different, but it doesn't mean we're not all going to meet at the same end.
Right.
You know what I mean? And a lot of people also start different times of their life. They have different roads. I think I'm 28 years old, still a youngin', and I have a really long journey ahead with this. And so I always remind myself that this is really just the beginning of it all for me.
That's right. That's absolutely
that grounds me down.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. And, there's so many waves in a career like this, right? Like, and not everyone is at sync in the same time. And I think the longer you stay in it, the more you see like, oh, that person who maybe I wished I was at their point earlier on, now they're maybe coming down at a time when I'm going up. And then a few years later than that, you both meet at the same point later. It's one of those weird things where no one goes at the same rate. And let me ask you this, because you just made me think of something. Do you think of yourself like you said, you're in a competitive space, and this is certainly the higher you get up in it, it gets very competitive. Do you think of yourself as a competitive person?
I'm extremely competitive.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm proud of that or not. It's I know I truly don't, but I'm very competitive. It's not to beat people. It's just to, like, when I see someone I admire who is up there, I'm competitive with where I'm at to get there. I always have to slow myself down and remind myself it's not about, the destination and the journey. We hear that all the time, but it's so true because I get fixated on goals. I'm very goal oriented, and I thrive off of setting goals for myself and pushing myself out of my comfort zone to get there, whatever it takes, sitting, watching YouTube tutorials, even if I have to this day. I'm taking classes till this day to enhance my mix engineering skills, my mastering skills, constantly trying to elevate as an artist with my skills. And I think that comes from a competitive place. Because if I wasn't so competitive, I could very much enjoy the fact that I've mastered the ability to make music and songs.
Right. Yeah. But you've made songs people like, so you could just do the same thing.
I can do that. I can just keep making music, and you'll get better at it over time as you make more. But it's bigger than that for me.
Well, I'm glad you're saying that, because I think there is kind of, we make these myths of artists we look up to and icons. And I think for people starting off, it's easy to think about these artists that we love as kind of inhuman, or, this thing that just is supremely talented and it's sort of unclear how to get there. But what you're talking about is that, no, it's always a work in progress, and that at whatever level, the best artists are the ones who are still trying to learn more, change more, internalize more. And, it's just one of those things, like, it's obvious when you say it, but I don't think we actually talk about it that much.
Yeah. Or instill it in our brains. We know it, but it is very much that. And I think people are really starting to pick up on that as well. I see a lot of artists who are at the top who are realizing that they have to start evolving as well because of the new wave, right? So you see a lot of DJs going to live sets now. You know, they didn't do this until now, their whole career, and they're still successful. And everyone looks up to them, but they're like, all right, we need to evolve. So we're going to launch a live or a hybrid live site, or start our own record label and help other artists get there. I think all of it, I see it happening with a lot of artists, and I love that, honestly.
It's great. I mean, anytime, change is one of those things where it makes people uncomfortable, but it has to happen for the culture and the sound and the art and any of it to progress, like whatever the result is.
It's messy in the beginning, but beautiful at the end, I say.
Yeah, that's
change.
That's beautiful. That's exactly right. And it's one of those things that if you are an artist, you have to embrace the change, fighting against the change. We know how that goes. But so for you, we were talking about your piano playing early on, and you were saying that, obviously right away, it wasn't electronic music that was catching your ear. When did that start to catch your ear?
Yeah, so I always resonated most with classical music, and also film scores essentially is classical music, but it always has a tone that's either uplifting or mysterious or dark. Scores are very articulated to a particular energy or emotion. Yeah. That's what I love. With that, when I discovered trance music, I found a lot of that type of emotion and atmosphere in this electronic music. Yeah. And the difference of it all was the beats, right? The BPM is so fast, and it gets your heart going. And then there's these beautiful atmospheric pads and beautiful uplifting synthesis. And for a young, and I think I discovered it back in 2007, 2006, 2007. So I was about 13 years old. And I fell in love with it instantly because of the way it makes you feel, right? I didn't even quite understand it yet. I just knew, wow, this is making me feel something.
Right.
And I would look outside the window and have those moments where you're just like taking the beauty in, and because of what the song created for me in that moment. And that's when there was an instantaneous connection for me and electronic music. And it primarily started with trance. So
how did you find trance specifically? Was it something someone played for you or something you saw?
Okay, well, first, before I discovered proper trance, I was just listening. I heard Cascada. I think Cascada.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Back in the day, like that very cheesy, electronic music. Great, though. Beautiful voice. But
that's my first Every Time We Touch, right? Is that record?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a great record.
So back to trance music. I was visiting some family in Europe and the Middle East. And over there, electronic music, trance particularly, psytrance, that was very prominent in the culture, far more than the States. I think hip hop,
for sure,
was taking over at that time. So, so I discovered it there. And then I had friends and older cousins kind of put me on some artists. I started doing my own research. I think we had LimeWire at that time, unless I'm wrong about the year, but I was using LimeWire to download music. Dude, I was such a kid, but I was just discovering so much. And I think Paul Oakenfold, Paul Van Dyke, Armin van Buuren, Skazi, just like old school dudes who really just, they're legends, veterans. They really, they had a huge influence on me. And I think that I still see that trance influence in my art today. Even though I wouldn't say I make trance, there's definitely trance overlays in my music. And I've heard that from a lot of people. And I always say I owe it to those guys because they made such an impact on me sonically. And it's transpired all the way to now. So it's beautiful.
Did you, in that time, basically your teen years, once you found electronic music, but you had kind of, put piano and all that to the side, were you doing anything musical, like in the high school years?
I was just going to raves.
Okay.
If I'm being completely honest.
That's pretty much what I was doing too, yeah.
I immersed myself into rave culture, learning about every single artist within the electronic music space. It was no longer just trance, progressive house, techno, dubstep, bass house, the whole shebang. I was just learning about it all. I was just building a really strong understanding of the different subgenres within electronic music and the pioneers in those spaces and who's leading in those spaces. And the labels, and I was just so deeply obsessed with all of it.
Well, in LA
and so that's
at the
how I got,
time, man, LA from like 2008 to 2012. I mean, what a place to be for electronic music.
Yeah. I mean, 2007, 2008, they were having the EDCs at the Coliseum, Monster Massive, Love Festival, Audiotistic. I mean, a lot of the festivals we see today, Beyond Wonderland, Nocturnal, they were all happening. And at the time, it was like you'd buy a $50 paper ticket at a store called Groove Riders, down the street. It was nothing like it is today. And it was a real community. And I fell in love with that community. So that's kind of what I devoted my time to. And then I started interning as I got into college. I started interning for different musical companies, versatile group of companies, but that's how it all started. It went from rave culture to companies.
I mean, that's a good way to do it. I think that's a good way to get your foot in the door. Was there any work with any particular companies, interning or anything that sticks out that made a particular impact on you?
Yes, 100%. I think I mean, through college, I had no idea or want to be an artist still. Like that was just not, I wanted to help other artists. I wanted to throw events. I wanted to be an event producer. So I actually started working for Dim Mak Records, which is Steve Aoki's label, and working with a man named Brian Linares and doing basically the marketing and event production around, at the time, was Steve Aoki's 10-year anniversary and Dim Mak's 10-year anniversary, I believe. And we were just putting together parties left and right. And it was just him and I was helping him. He was the leader of it all, of course. But learning from him on what it takes, who to talk to, sponsorships, decks, like, even something as small as like those blow up little toys people are throwing around. And we would design all those. We would get, it was just all that. And that really was a lot for me to learn, what you do within a label and how to throw events. And also just being in the environment of a small label with only 14 people, I became close with everybody. I also moved over to A&R for a bit and was working under Lauren, who taught me and about 2 other people really how to properly A&R for a label. And there was training involved with that. And that's when they were starting to pass on samples to me and really understand the different samples in production. And so this is how my ears started getting ignited. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Because I didn't know anything about drums. I mean, I know piano and I know melody, but drums were new for me. Like to really understand what's a clap, what's a snare, what's a kick, what's bass, what's all that. And differentiate it when listening to demos. So then eventually I was able to really handle the whole inbox for demo submissions for Dim Mak for a short time, but I did that. And then whenever I'd find something that I felt was quality, I'd bring it to Lauren and maybe get signed, maybe not. I worked with Steve Aoki hands-on multiple times on his shoots, kind of befriended him a little bit, learned from them and just how he acted as an artist, how he treated his colleagues, all of it. It was so important to me.
He's an interesting guy.
I started my label at the same time as starting my own career, all simultaneously. Like, had I not learned what I learned at that label, I don't know if I would have been able to start my own.
Yeah. So your own label, basically, you started at the same time you started your artist project? About 2 years into it, which is still very early to do. That is very early. Yeah.
Yeah. So I launched it. I trademarked it. I started an LLC. I signed artists from all over the world. We have a beautiful discography. I'm really proud of what we're building, the artwork, the brand. We had a launch party at Sound Nightclub in Los Angeles. It was a one-woman show. I put the whole production on.
Nice.
I brought a female artist, live artist from Spain named Nola, who headlined. I did all that and I was proud of it too, early on at 2018.
As you should be. And I mean, that's kind of cool in a way that, you were saying you were working on the business side, then you decided you'd rather be working as an artist, but you can still bring those skills to bear and kind of do a more full experience as a result of the path you took.
I think for me, it's about not wanting this project to be only about me. And with having a label and being able to give back to the community outside of just making music and sharing and performing for people, here's an opportunity for me to find artists whose music I believe in, who I feel have potential, and help them get their music to the right ears. Because now I knew that as I would continue to grow, I would have a bigger and bigger platform to do that for them. And now it's, budgets are bigger for me to put more money into artworks for them, video assets, banners, everything that we do. It's just, I was able to bring on 2 people into the team last year only, and to help me out as my touring kind of took off. I couldn't keep up with it all.
Sure.
So just kind of building that simultaneously, because I truly want to help other artists get there. And I feel like I have a lot of knowledge around how to build an artist, and what comes with that, the type of, priorities that come with that. And I think one day, let's say when I'm 50 years old and want to maybe slow down on touring or whatever, who knows, I can put all my energy into building other artists and getting their music to the rest of the world. That's like, I'm passionate about that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and people need to do it. It's kind of the same itch for me doing this podcast. Is it just feels nice to
to give back.
Yeah, to give back, and not that there isn't a selfish part of me too. It's kind of just nice to be involved in a different way. That it's not all about you necessarily, but that you still get to participate while kind of enjoying what's happening around you,
Yeah, I completely agree with you. That's how I feel.
Yeah, it's really nice. And, the label, I should probably plug it, is Ear Porn, right? Ear Porn
music, yes.
Which, that's a great name, first of all.
Thanks. I'm definitely pushing boundaries there, but No,
I like it because I don't know, I read some interviews with you and just listening to your music and all that. I like that there's kind of a highbrow, lowbrow dichotomy in a lot of it. Because I see you talking about, the writing music to make deep connections with people in this sort of spiritual, meaningful way. But then also having a label called Ear Porn is just funny and fun. And, I like it. I like it when people kind of mix it up as far as the tone of the project.
Yes. And that was definitely my intention. And also to loosen up the idea around, the truth is, we all always correlate sex and music, sex, art and music, rock and roll, sex, drugs and rock and roll. It's always been together. I definitely see intimacy in a completely different way. From a very spiritual, creative standpoint, intimacy is creation. And I talk a lot about that. But I think Ear Porn, people like the name, and I knew it would just attract the ear.
Catchy, yeah.
But also it can put a humorous side to, sex and music. And a lot of people do have a negative perspective on porn. Maybe we can redefine what that means in the music space.
Sure.
And funny enough, when you walk around, we have Ear Porn hoodies and stickers. People always ask, what is that? What does that mean? And then you explain to them ear porn's music for the ear, porn for the ear, music. People always laugh right away. They're like, oh, that's so cool.
Right.
So I think, it was really just to give a funny, humorous spin, but also to loosen up the conversation around that as well. That porn doesn't necessarily have to be something negative, when you put it into music and,
Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying. I absolutely agree with you.
It's just beautiful music for your ear to please your ear.
I love that.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, going back a little bit to when you got back into music, you were working at Dimmock and other labels, that sort of thing. Did you have anybody who reached a hand out early to you, or who was a mentor to you early? Because you were talking about the label helping out, the next generation. Was anyone that for you?
Yeah, I think it was a bit harder for me when I started out. Would have been great, first of all, to have a female mentor, because I would have felt a bit more safe. I think the problem was finding male mentors who actually believed in you and didn't just see you as a young woman or a young pretty face that just doesn't know what she's doing. It was hard to find someone I trusted to even approach for help.
Sure.
I did school at an academy for a year. A full program. Then I did another program at Anonymous. And that was primarily, I went back into school for mixing and mastering skills, but digital mastering, we weren't working with any hardware stuff, just digital mastering, but really enhancing my skills. And I worked at that point. I found my mentor named Morgan, who's also an artist, but such a humble person, really believed in me. And he would sit with me, and basically I would come to meet him and have all these questions about mixing and plugins, what plugins to use to, better enhance or, space out certain elements, side chaining certain low end elements to each other, what makes sense, what doesn't. And then also with mastering. And he was patient with me and he taught me a lot. But he's a bass house producer. So he didn't quite ever understand my productions anyways, but he was supportive regardless of the direction I was going in. I went to him already when I was making music. It was more just about a mentor who could help me enhance my skills as a producer. Because that either takes you like 10 years to figure out on your own, of constant trial and error, or like you can reach out to a mentor who has the experience, who can help you out with the questions you have. But it really has to come from, in my opinion, you have to know what you want to learn and you have to want to learn it because it's work no matter what. No one can just hand over the formula for you. There is no formula. It's really training your ear.
Yeah.
More than anything, what I learned from my mentors is learning how to use my ear to shape my sounds and to make it all fit together and have a place for every element in the song to lay. So it was a lot of hard work and a lot of practice on my end. I would talk to them for maybe an hour or two a week, but then I would spend hours and hours and hours a day because I quit my job. So I was just like full in school and like just practicing every day. And I mastered a lot of what I wanted to master quite quickly. But I owe a lot to Morgan and another person. His name is Claus. He's a friend of mine and someone who I looked up to for so long. I collected all his records. And when I first started making music, I would reach out to him on Instagram and be like, hey, could you just listen to this, please? And give me some feedback. Like, I look up to you. I admire you. It started at that, And then after so many years of me constantly being consistent and trying to get feedback from him, he realized how serious I was about this and started to build respect for me. And then one day he offered to help me really go deep with analog sound design because I started getting really into analog sound design and working with my synthesizers, sending MIDI to my synthesizers, having a strong workflow with my patch bay, my MIDI interface. And he's in France, but I would just call him and be like, hey, what do you think about this? And it was so hard to like understand him through his accent too, but he was always there for me with any questions I had about, moving up a level with hardware and analog equipment. So those are the two people that had a big impact on me.
Yeah, well, that's really nice. And the analog gear is interesting too, because I think that, at least at this point, is maybe one of the hallmarks of your sound and your music is those kind of analog tones. I guess my question is, like, how much does analog gear play into your productions now versus when you were starting off?
Oh, so when I was starting off, I was using mainly digital plugins like Diva, Repro, Zebra. I loved UHE, Omnisphere, Spectrasonics. I always have a hard time saying their name. Yeah. And I still sometimes use plugins, and I'm not primarily analog, but I prefer analog for main melodic elements. For example, leads, pads, even just textures or like those tones, those soundscapes you have in the back of your songs. If we keep at least those elements analog, I feel like your track is going to sound, alive.
Yeah.
There's something that it has that digital can't. You can get close to it, but it just has this warmth and this girth, I feel like, sonically, energetically, that just wraps around you, that feels alive. So I try to make sure that my lead elements in the track are analog. And then if in some cases I really struggle with finding a sound that I feel works in a track, then I'll start going through presets and doing, digital modulation and sound design online. Pigments by Arturia is another one I love. There's a lot of amazing modulation opportunities and things to do, and the engines are strong. So, I try to stick to analog because my mentor, he always says analog over everything. Right. I definitely don't use analog drum machines yet. I'm not there yet. I have a TR-8S, but it's not analog. The drum machine is primarily digital signal. So I program my drums manually with drum samples, things like that, or record out of the TR-8S. But all my synths are the soundscapes you hear. For the most part, the pads, the leads in my songs are analog.
And you said earlier we were talking about, a lot of DJs trying to bring a live element to the live show. Is that something you're thinking about as well?
Yeah, something I'm working on. Yeah. Currently working on. Been working on it. Yeah, I'm in no rush at the moment. I think hopefully within the next 2 years, I'd like to launch live. But my strategy is not just to start playing live for the hell of it. I want to put out an album and I want to do a live set tour around the album and launch my live that way. Till now, all the releases that I've put out are very versatile, and I don't feel that they are cohesive enough to be a part of a 75-minute all original set. So it's not so much about learning how to do it. I have my APC 40 mixer and the synths that I would want to use, and I know how to map my stems already and launch. I think it's really just getting the right songs, my songs, that would put a nice 75-minute all original set together, which in my head would be a nice album with a concept.
Yeah.
And then launching it in that way. So I think that would be much more special.
Have you thought about what form that album might take? Like, I guess I'm thinking about your production process, and is there like a normal way you sit down to write music?
No, not at all. But currently I'm sitting on about 8 projects, and they were all inspired by a different ancient goddess, like Hathor, Kuan Yin, Isis, Aphrodite, just different artists, and also Sirius, the constellation. So there's a bunch of music I'm sitting on that has a common theme. And I've been thinking about maybe building it into an album,
Yeah.
If I get another 4 or 5 songs, it could easily be an album.
It's a cool concept.
It's just about knowing if I'm ready for that as an artist, I think I keep telling myself like there is no right time to put out an album. But sometimes on the business side of things, a lot of people will tell you, you want to wait a year or 2 before you start putting out albums, like put out some more EPs and things like that. So we'll see. I have a beautiful team of people who help me with these types of decisions. I'm very impulsive, so I'm happy they're all like talking to me about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I think it will be something around ancient energy, spirituality, and making the whole live set tour being a spiritual experience for people. That would be a dream.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really interesting concept. And I like that because I haven't heard something exactly like that before. What is your, if it's okay to ask, like, what has your spiritual journey been like as you've been, becoming this artist as well? I always, with people's spirituality and the way they look at the world, I always wonder, like, what are the catalysts that make them see the world that way?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. I think a lot of it for me has been plant medicine and working with plant medicines and psychedelic medicines with intention. There's people who use psychedelics for recreational use. I'm not one of those people. I went in seeking help for medical struggles that I was facing around the same time that I had my spiritual awakening was the same time that I found music and the same time that I decided to pursue this as a career. It almost acted as a therapy for me and a distraction away from some of the pain and struggles I was facing and a way for me to transmute the pain into something beautiful. So then simultaneously, I didn't want to turn to Western medicine so much with these things, and plant medicines came to me. So I didn't start using plant medicines just for an awakening. I had things that I wanted to heal. I had hormonal imbalances and things that, most doctors and even holistic doctors were like, yeah, you should get on medication. And I'm like, I don't want to get on medication. I don't believe in taking that. I don't want to numb my emotions as an artist.
So like depression or, some mental
depression,
health
anxiety,
stuff, yeah.
And PMDD, which is hormonal disorder for women around their cycles. So like the normal woman who goes through PMS, PMDD is like a very severe form of that,
Sure.
That comes just a week out. And it's pretty detrimental to go through every single month. It's really people who go through it. I empathize so much for them. But anyways, it came to me. I told someone, I think I'm thinking about getting on medication. And then they said, well, before you do, you should try doing combo. So there's a medicine called combo, which is a frog poison. It comes from a monkey tree frog, very poisonous frog. And they basically the shaman will burn little dots on you and administer the poison onto your skin. And it basically resets your entire nervous system. Your gallbladder and all your organs start to pump out all the stagnant bile or illness. It legitimately heals the body. It's like not a treating type of thing. It heals the body. In fact, I actually have a friend of mine, Endo, who's fairly known in the music community. And he just reached out to me. He works with Tractor Music and does a lot of stuff for Dubfire. He's an amazing, amazing artist. And he told me that the combo medicine healed his tinnitus.
Wow.
Which is bonkers. Yeah, it's bonkers. This medicine is crazy. It's so powerful. It's becoming more accessible to us in the Western world. But it's ancient medicine, like Mayan culture. And basically all the stagnant illness in your body kind of goes into your stomach pathway and you purge. And it's painful.
Yeah, I was about to ask. Yeah.
It's not fun. I honestly feel like I'm dying for a good 10 minutes every time and like try to just breathe through it because I know the benefits of what it's done for me. I've done it probably over 10 times now because of how much it's healed my body and only continues to heal me, my immune system. I mean, people who have known me for a long time always ask me like, wow, like you're so different and you've transformed so much and you seem so healthy and look so good. And I'm always like, well, I owe a lot of that to the medicine because my body was going through a lot. I had metabolic issues as well. It reset everything. And for women as well, it resets their cycle, their hormones, everything gets reset. So my spiritual journey started from working with that medicine. And then obviously it led to working with, ayahuasca and other forms of spiritual medicines that have given me so much wisdom and knowledge that I feel I can share energetically through my art. And that's why I think spirituality is really important because I want to show people there's a way out of whatever they're struggling with. You know, I almost wanted to give up on life a couple of times in my life. So I think there's always a way out and just exploring your options and trusting in plants because plant is earth and it's here for us for to help us, I feel, you know?
Yeah.
So
do you know Beretta from the Glitch Mob by any chance? Have you ever met him?
I know the Glitch Mob, but no, not familiar.
He's the only reason I ask. He's a friend of mine. He's one of the members of the Glitch Mob, and he is a strong advocate for psychedelics as therapy, psychedelics as medicine, plant medicine, all of that. He's involved in some kind of like he's working with people on like legislation to try to like make it more, legal across the country, that kind of thing. Anyway, he's just a big advocate for the kinds of stuff you're talking about. Yeah.
No, I know about the government who's been putting money into research around this. I know that they're opening ketamine clinics in Los Angeles for people who have PTSD. And they're starting to see that there's some real strong healing properties in these medicines if used properly, not recreationally. They're powerful. Bufo alvarez, the frog, is, 5-MeO-DMT. Mike Tyson said he's never going to fight again. He's like, he changed him.
Right.
It changed him. He's like, I can't be violent ever again. We are all love. We are all one. And that's what these medicines do for you. So, it's heartbreaking to see that there's such mindless violence in the world. And I believe that these medicines would heal the world. Not to say it's right for everybody. I just think if some of us can do the work, and it's hard work to face that and to do that, we can transfer it and share it in many ways, like raising awareness, talking about it, putting intentions into our music, creating experiences, or inspiring people to maybe go after their own journey. So yeah, it's powerful.
Well, how do you think, on that note, because you were saying, through your music, all that, how do you think these sort of revelations influenced your music and the music you were writing?
Completely. I think my last record I just put out last weekend is called Om, which is oneness. And I really set so much intention into the process of making that music to be something that will clear and energetically clear any blockages people may have to receiving love or giving love and coming together as one, remembering, just trying to ignite maybe memory in people. And if that doesn't happen to them, it's at least just going to uplift them and make them feel something good because the intention is in there.
Right.
My putting intention into healing, love, trust, safety, into creating music, I feel like that subconsciously everyone will feel it, even if they don't, the human mind might not know it, but the soul will. And that's why sometimes our hairs stand and we get those goosebumps. We don't know why, because our soul on a deeper knowing knows that truth. So I think it's really influenced me. My spiritual journey I continue to do the work. I just went on a retreat in January for the start of the year to really heal myself, clear myself in the jungle, do a lot of ayahuasca, just get in the right space to give back to the world through art. And I hope to continue to share that And I think all the music that I have coming out is really stemmed from spirituality and healing, self-love.
That's beautiful. I mean, it makes me think about what you were talking about earlier in the conversation with you being really into film scores when you were younger too. So I think that's a similar thing, right? Where film scores are meant to evoke or enhance a certain emotion or a mood. And like you were saying, we don't always know why it works, but when it all kind of comes together, you do sort of get lost in that world a little bit when it all works.
Right.
And
it's like when we watch a film, sorry to cut you off, when we watch a film, sometimes, if the film was on mute, we wouldn't be as scared or we wouldn't cry as much. It wouldn't move us as much. But when that sound is there, that frequency, you feel everything, that sound makes you feel. It creates that for you. One shared emotion.
Absolutely. And I'm really interested in how that is done, right? Because we all know that feeling. We've all had that feeling. But then as creators, you were saying that you're trying to put these feelings into your music. How do you do that? Is there I'm always interested in trying to marry the more ethereal concepts with the mechanical of I'm sitting in front of a keyboard. How is this done?
Yeah, well, honestly, I would say stop thinking about it and just feel for it, because it's as simple as playing something and just playing your keyboard, your piano. And then when something makes you feel your heart just goes inwards a little and you're like, ooh, there's something there, building on that. It could be 3 notes, just 3 notes in a row. That is the progression that makes you feel some type of way. And then you build on that and you add, I think it's about feeling. So me, I always try to create that feeling for myself first. Whatever it is that I'm playing or whatever I'm hearing that's creating that for me is what I focus in on, forget everything else. And then I build from that. But if I go in thinking about, I want to create this really sad and it's not going to happen.
Never works.
It's an immediate limitation. I think going in and just playing for you and seeing what's making you feel a certain way. And if you're feeling happy and happy vibes are going to come through, then that's what you need to let come through. And you'll probably make something super beautiful out of it. But if you happen to be feeling emotional, which Lord knows I'm always emotional, I can just try to feel for something that's making me feel something that I would want to share with somebody else.
That's of course the right answer. And I think creativity is such an impossible thing to hold on to that. Yeah, it's more about getting out of your own way a lot of the time.
Yeah. I get in the way of myself all the time with my own thoughts, but I always remember it's not about thinking, it's about feeling with this art.
Yeah, absolutely. Thinking about as far as goals, not only as an artist and for the music, maybe even as a person, what are you trying to get done in the next few years?
I have big dreams.
That's good.
I have very big dreams, but also humble, realistic goals for time periods. So I don't expect myself to be where I want to be in maybe 2 or 3 years. I think everything takes time, and I'm not trying to focus in too much on time limits. I'm trying to focus in on my goals and what will get me there. I see everything as a ladder. And so if in the future, I would very much like to score a film, right? But I feel like that's something that I might do after I really achieved my career within electronic music first.
Sure.
And get to a place where I've earned my respect around the world. I'm older, I'm more mature. I have a lot of fans, people who would support that, and probably a lot of colleagues that I work with who maybe could guide me into that direction as well, and to get there, that's a dream of mine. But then there's all those other ladder steps underneath, the labels that I would like to see myself release on now, and in the next few years, the dream labels of mine that I have within this space. I journal a lot about my dream labels. And while I make music, I always, when I start to see there's a vibe, I try to see where, those songs could go. I hope to continue to build my label simultaneously with building this project, helping as many artists as I can. And, it's more investing with my label right now. I'm not making any money at all.
Sure, of course.
I'm just, nothing. It's just a pleasure really to help and to really care and do my best for them. And then hopefully one day, build the label to be something so big as well that it could be its own entity and something that I could, move away from music if I ever had to down the line when I'm much older and focus on the label. or do stage takeovers at festivals or host our own parties. Like Afterlife is absolutely killing it with their label.
Yeah.
And it's the coolest party. It's not a sellout. Like they're underground, but massive and killing it. And the brand is sexy and the music is beautiful and cinematic. And it's an honor to play at Afterlife, right? So something like building that over the years, over the next decade and really just planting the seed, leaving my mark on the culture. That's where I want to start within the next
yeah.
decade.
I like that. That's where you'll start.
That's where I'll start. Then the following decade, we'll start talking about collaborating with some people. I have dreams about collaborating with vocalists that are not in the electronic space. I've seen some DJs do it. They may have gotten hated on for it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's beautiful. I think I saw the Blessed Madonna do some sort of collaboration with Dua Lipa. Super cool. Things like that.
She's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. So, just doing some really just no limits, doing all the things I want to do over the years,
Yeah.
But taking my time and one step at a time, earning my way up,
Well, that's the great perspective overall. And I got to think, you were talking about dream labels and collabs and all that. It seems like some of that is starting to happen, like you putting out music with Anjuna and some other, like at least from an outsider's perspective, it feels like the bigger entities in the scene are starting to take notice. Does it feel like that to you?
Kind of. I think, it's harder for me to see. Maybe I do have a lot of people telling me that. And I think Anjunadeep has done so much for me. Just releasing that one single with them it changed my life. Yeah. I hear it all the time. Maybe I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it can be frustrating. At the same time, I know what you're saying too, because it can be a really weird moment when I've had somebody come up to me and be, say like, oh, you're killing it right now. You're doing great. But if you yourself don't feel like that, or if you know that there's things you would do differently or things that could be better, it's really hard to hear that,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what I feel. I feel that way right now. Not that I could be doing better, but that I just want to be focusing on putting out music, more versatile music. I don't want to stick to any one label. So all the labels that I'm working with, I plan to continue to work with them. But I also don't want to attach myself to any label. I want to just build as much as I can, build myself as an individual. Like Macioplex is a perfect example of someone who's released on all these labels, but you don't tie him to a label. Right. He's just Macioplex. You know what I mean? Like, I really admire that. That's definitely something that I hold up, on a pedestal for me as a direction I'd like to do and go in. So yeah, I think all of these, like Anjunadeep signing me was just a dream come true. Being on their tour, dream come true, but also being realistic and thinking about next steps and other goals I have in the space, and staying humble, because I definitely don't feel like I'm a superstar. Everyone's like, oh, you made it, Anjunadeep. I'm like, nah, this is just one next ladder step. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how I think.
How is the touring really kicking into gear in the last couple of years been treating you? How are you finding that whole world and that whole speed of life?
I struggled. I definitely struggled in the beginning with my first big tour of 18 shows over the course of 2 months, like 8 weeks.
Yeah.
I was struggling. What can I say? I had a really rough time. And I think I had to make a decision after that to take January off and most of February to just ground down from that, because I had to really reevaluate and think about, all right, from that experience, what worked for me, what didn't, the go, not sleeping enough, even on the occasional, like having a cocktail, like those things didn't work for me. I need 8 hours of sleep. I need to make sure that, these are things that I had to learn. And you learn through challenging moments. So I had to go through a lot of challenging moments, but now I learned how to have a healthy relationship with touring, with myself through the process, and how much I can handle. So I think now moving forward, touring, so far, I've been touring pretty much every weekend this month, besides last weekend. I did Beyond Wonderland, which was local, 2 hours away. But yeah, I'll be traveling again in a few days. And I so far have been having a really smooth experience with touring now, after the shit show last year.
Right. Yeah. Which happens, that's okay. I think that's fine. At least you can think about it and be like, oh yeah, the back when I would, not take care of myself on tour, at least that can be a memory to rely on,
Totally. It's a lesson. They're all lessons. So I'm grateful for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was tough.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for my manager, my partner, everyone really stepped forward and helped me through. The moment I got on stage, you would never even imagine. I love to be up there. I love to share, and I care. It's not for me. It's for everybody who's there to have a good time, to experience that. So it was easy for me to perform and do my best every single time. It was the aftermath,
Yeah.
The days were the in-between days, I call them.
Yeah.
Those were hard.
The in-between days, I mean, it's physically tiring, obviously, but then, emotionally too. Yeah. There's some weird highs and lows that really can hit you, because it's one thing to talk about them and another thing to experience them. You know?
I never thought I really never understood it until I went through it on my own. Just the adrenaline rush and drop and things like that. So yeah, there's strategies, right? Like that's why I see so many artists who make meditation a priority on tour. They bring their yoga mats around. They have their little, face mask when they get to the hotel. Whatever you need, whatever works for you. Journaling, gratitude. That's priority now with tour, 100%.
Yeah. Well, I love that. Well, so this is going to be a little random, and then I'll wrap it up. But I just wrote down a couple things that we mentioned that I just wanted to re-mention for a second. The first one was that you lived in Australia for a short time. When was that, and why was that? I was just trying to place that in the timeline.
No, that's fine. It was before Berlin. I can't remember the exact year, but it was, I think, 2018.
Okay.
Right before when I launched my label and I had my first label launch party at Sound, I had come back from Melbourne for it. And I moved there because I wanted to move to the farthest place on earth.
Yeah.
Away from everything. I think I needed to get away from LA for a while. I think it was not doing good for my soul for a time being. And then I needed to find myself a little more by being alone in another country on the farthest place on earth, and redefine who I am and how I do on my own and survive on my own. And I built a beautiful life for myself over there. And I fell in love with everybody and the culture. And I still talk to all my friends out there every week. They're real ones. I don't think I'll ever have as good of friends as I do in Australia. They're such good people.
Yeah.
Different culture, Yeah,
it is. Melbourne's the one city in Australia I haven't been to, but just going there in general, Australia.
You gotta go.
I loved Australia. Every second I was there, I loved it.
Melbourne is like Berlin mixed with New York, but only happy vibes all around.
Okay, that sounds pretty good.
Everybody is just a gem. Everyone is happy. They're just getting by. No competition, no anger, no stress, no rushing to get to places. I mean, it's just a good energy when you get there.
Yeah.
I have a family, my friends over there. I love them so much. But I came back because I had to make a choice. I realized quite quickly, I was playing events out there. I set up my little studio in my tiny, tiny apartment. My apartment was half the size of this one bedroom.
Yeah.
And I realized that you can't really tour from there. And I was talking to artists who live in Australia who were more established and would tell me, if you're here, you're going to be stuck here because it's a huge country. It's bigger than the United States continent, excuse me. And then if you want to get even to the country just above, for us, that would be Canada. It's 5 hours away. Singapore is just right above, and it takes 7-8 hours to get there by flight.
Yeah.
And then you want to get to Europe or the UK, it's 24 hours.
Yeah.
How do you tour?
I mean, it's funny.
No one's going to do that.
Well, because you did the opposite of what they all do. I've talked to plenty of Australian artists who, it's
they leave.
They can't get out of there fast enough.
Yeah, totally. I know they all leave. And that's the thing. I was more because I fell in love with the continent, and I fell in love with the people and the culture and everything about it. Food, fashion, the energy of people was everything I would want.
Yeah.
I'm way happier, I think, there than I am anywhere else in the world. But I chose my music path over that.
Yeah.
Basically, I chose music over peace of mind.
Yeah.
Do you
well,
understand?
That's relatable. Yeah. That might be the most relatable thing I've heard all day.
Well, I'm glad. You know how it is. When you make sacrifices for the things you love, and it comes with shit. So that's what I chose. I chose to leave it all behind. I was crying for weeks. I was so sad. But I came home and everything started exploding for me here.
Yeah.
Honestly. So it was the right decision.
Absolutely. And probably the right decision to go there in the first place too, right? Where I think if you get yourself in the right headspace before launching a new chapter or a big project in your life, I think that's maybe the best thing anyone can do for themselves. Because if you start a big thing when you're, at 25% mentally or whatever it is, maybe you could do it, but it's going to be a lot harder.
Totally. Yeah, no, the inspiration fuels you. So I agree.
Yeah.
But I had to adapt. And then I tried to leave LA again. I was like, peace out. Like, I love my parents, but my soul sometimes need a bit more than LA. When you've been here your whole life, sometimes you just need a bit more. Yeah, I tried Berlin, and then the pandemic brought my ass straight back. And I realized, my path is here.
Yeah.
The universe could not make it more clear that they want me here.
So are you in LA now? No thoughts of going somewhere else now?
I'm not going to fight it. Like, as much as I think my soul wants to be elsewhere, there must be a bigger reason above that as to why I'm supposed to be here. I'm really listening to the signs, and the signs are stay here. And when I stayed here after Berlin, my whole team came together. I had the most amazing manager. I met the love of my life. We got a place together. I built my dream studio. I got signed to some dream labels.
Yeah.
My team is amazing. Everyone who I work with is just really special. I'm honored and lucky to have them. And that all came together. It was like the gift from the universe. Like, if you're going to stay here, we'll reward you. So boom. And then everything went boom, boom, boom.
Why
so
mess
fast.
with a good thing? Yeah. Absolutely.
We weren't even ready for the tour, honestly. Like, we were just in building stages with the team last year. And the tour just came to us. We had about 9 shows that were organic shows that came in, and then another 9 shows from Anjunadeep. And I didn't even have an agent yet.
Oh, wow. That's great.
So it was just like, we had to just keep up with how things were moving for us here, being here. So we did, and got an agent on board now, and building for Europe now that everything's going back to normal. And yeah, I guess I'm just supposed to be here. Are you here?
Yeah. No, I'm not. I used to live in San Diego. I now live in DC. So I'm on the other coast now. But pre-pandemic, I was in LA like once a month or so. So nice. I feel like we'll get back to that sometime this year. It's been super fun. Before we get out of here, is there anything we haven't talked about that you want to get out there? Anything you want to let people know? Anything else that's on your mind?
Thank you. Just a lot of gratitude. Thank you for having me. I was really excited to talk with you. And thank you to everybody who's listening, who cares. And if anybody has any questions about some of the things we spoke about, I really am passionate about sharing and raising awareness around the tools that we have to heal ourselves without Western medicine. So you can hit me up, direct message. I try to check the direct messages from everybody at all times. So please feel free. Yeah, more music coming next month. So I'm really excited, April 29th. And that's really it. I think we covered a lot, and I'm really grateful that we got to speak about everything.
Yeah, me too. This was really awesome. And come back anytime. You're more than welcome. We can do a part
Thank
2.
Thank you.
So I have one question that I just ask at the end of every episode, kind of just a quick thing, like first thing that pops into your head kind of question. Just looking for a memory from your life, a moment from your life, could be from any time, when in that moment, music really deeply affected you, really like meant something to you, or did something to you in that moment. And that's meant to be a super broad question. There's no wrong answer. Kind of just the first thing you think of.
First thing I think of is 2017. I went to go see Stefan Botzen play live for my very first time. I was emotional when I watched him play for the first time. He's obviously an idol of mine, and I'm actually working with his wife, who's an amazing, talented producer, DJ. The song that I released last week was with her.
Oh, wow.
She's an amazing vocalist and just a powerhouse of a woman, but really crazy because full circle. I mean, that many years ago when I saw him perform, I was so emotional. And that was the moment that I decided to quit my job and pursue my career. That moment, I called my mother. I'm like, hey, by the way, I'm quitting my job. I was a little fucked up at the festival. Like, just know I'm quitting my job. And like, this is what I'm doing with my life.
I'm sure she loved getting that call.
She was livid. But my friends who were with me, when we were driving out of the festival the next day, I was so emotional about it. I'm just like, okay, this is an epiphany. Like, this is what I'm meant to be doing. And then I was just like, but where am I going to start? And, I'm already 21 and blah, blah, blah. I was just like, didn't know where to start. And my friend was like, just fucking go for it. Like, stop asking questions. I don't want to see you for the next 3 months. Just do it. And honestly, that whole experience changed my life. I mean, I went and bought equipment for the first time. I bought a small little tractor S2 to like try to learn how to DJ. like try to see where I could learn how to mix vinyl, like right away. Like everything was just like so fast after that one moment that I saw my idol perform.
Well,
you know?
yeah. I mean, what was that moment like? What was it? The feeling you were getting from the performance? Was it something about the way he was performing or the equipment he was using? Like, what was it that
he's
really
playing
like
on a
lit up your brain?
synthesizer. The keys, I mean, obviously have a deep root in my heart. Like playing piano and playing keys is a huge part of me and my artistry. But when I was watching him play, and he's so passionate and he's really in the experience he's not like performing and acting. He's just like in it, head up, closing his eyes. And for a split moment, I just saw myself as him. There was just some weird vision. I just saw myself, and I just, I don't know. I was obviously a little bit intoxicated, but it never crossed my mind ever to pursue it. And I saw myself in that moment, and I figured it out. I figured out, and I said, oh my God, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
That's
it was
beautiful.
A moment of epiphany, spiritual epiphany.
Yeah, there's nothing more perfect than that. And I like what your friend said to you, stop thinking about it, just do it, is kind of what you were saying earlier about, giving advice for people writing music, is that, it really has to come from like a deeper place, and usually
feeling it.
Yeah. And usually when you do feel it, that's what you need to follow to get a good result. Yeah,
exactly.
I love it. I think that's a great way to end it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
it's been
thank you
so fun to talk to you.
Yeah, this was really fun. And I know we went over time a little bit too, but sorry, that was fun.
No, it was fun. We're getting in it. I love conversations like this.
Me
it fuels
too.
my soul.
Me too. Absolutely. And have great luck with the touring, all the music, and hope to be in touch soon.
Thank you so much.
All
Same
right.
to you.
Yeah,
See
thank
you soon.
you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.